Did anyone get whiplash on that roller coaster ride with the Bengals today? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And we talked to Jim and Rodney about yet another disappointing ending. Plus,
our kids stay the course and keep playing, and that's how you got to win. You can't get too high, too low.
Elder, one of several teams advancing as the high school football playoffs heat up in Ohio. Our guy Mike Dyer tells us what matchups to look out for in the next round. And UC football is enjoying its highest ranking in more than a decade, but they're not enjoying a second straight week not playing. An update on where the team stands after COVID-19 hits the program.
From WCPO 9 Sports, this is Sports of All Sorts.
What up? Welcome to Sports of All Sorts. I'm Reggie Wilson. For a small moment of time this week, it looked like the Rona was going to disrupt the Bengals game day plans, but everything turned out to be all right. For the home team, that is. Bengals might have wished Sunday's game ended at halftime. More on that shortly, but we start with the loss of a Reds legend. One of the greatest of all time, Hall of Famer Joe Morgan passed away at the age of 77. As the motor behind the Big Red Machine, he helped lead the Reds to back-to-back titles in 1975 and 76 and is regarded as one of the best second basemen to ever play the game. Reds fans show their respect by creating a memorial outside his statue at Great American Ballpark. In a statement, Reds CEO Bob Castellini said in part, "Our hearts ache for his Big Red Machine teammates, and his contributions to this franchise will live forever." That sentiment shared by Reds fans across the country. Well, they called Morgan Little Joe because he was only 5'7", but stands tall in the Reds history books and Major League Baseball. There is no Big Red Machine without Little Joe.
I mean, he became the greatest player in baseball. He had a string of years that was as good as anybody has ever had for a 5 or 6 year period. He just dominated the game. He was the brightest comet in the sky. He was a star, and he helped his team win in so many different ways.
We talked to his old teammate Ken Griffey this week, who told us he just called Joe last week to see how he was doing.
Well, the only thing I can tell you right now, he was a super teammate. He understood the game. He made sure all the young players were taken care of. And like a big brother to most of us, me, George, and Davey, and Geronimo, just totally surprised. It caught everybody off guard, especially me. And plus, the biggest thing is that you can't pay any respects because of the situations going on with the pandemic.
Griffey told us Joe was a giant when it came to the game, and this is certainly a giant loss. We send our condolences to the Morgan family. Another big story this week, the UC football team was supposed to play Tulsa yesterday. That game was postponed due to coronavirus concerns. We found out Thursday that there are positive cases at UC. There are student athletes quarantined. The Tulsa game was rescheduled to December 5th. In a statement, UC's athletic director John Cunningham said in part, "We knew this season was going to require a lot of patience and flexibility, and disruptions were likely to happen. The health and safety of student athletes, coaches, and staff is always our primary focus." More on this story later in the show. And more bad news for the Bengals before we even got to game day weekend. Sam Hubbard placed on IR with an elbow injury. That means he'll be out at least the next few weeks. A big blow to a defensive line already without big ticket free agent acquisition, DJ Reader, who's out for the season. So let's get to the game in Indy against the Colts today. This game starts about as good as they could hope for. First drive, Jack Doyle coughs it up. The Bengals recover. Ensuing drive, Gio Bernard pounds it in for the touchdown. Bengals lead 7-0. Goes from good to better. Joe Burrow sneaks it in from a yard out. Watch out. It's 14-0. Can't get any more sweet, right? Well, Burrow makes the hater silent on this throw. Who says he can't throw the deep ball? 67-yard bomb to T. Higgins. 6 catches for 125 yards. Leads to this. Joe Mixon from a couple yards out. It's 21-0. And just a dancing good time, but what if I told you the Bengals would only score 6 more points the rest of the game? Yeah, that happened. Let's go to the fourth. Cincy clinging to a 6-point lead. Philly Riv tosses a dime to Doyle, and the Colts take their first lead of the day, 28-27. Randy Bullock has been Mr. Automatic since missing that potential game-time field goal in week 1, so of course he doinks that one. Don't you hate when the calf acts up on you, leads to a field goal on the other end, so gives the Bengals a chance to win in the last drive. Burrow hooks up with A.J. Green on 4th down. Green had 8 catches for 96 yards. Welcome back, A.J. But it's the wrong time for a rookie mistake. Burrow picked off by Julian Blackmon. Ball game. Bengals lose 31-27.
Everybody could have done one more thing to help us get this win, and that's all of us. That's the coaches and the players, and everyone's got to be accountable to that. We put ourselves in a tough position here, with just one win, and it doesn't matter if you feel like you've done better than that. That doesn't matter. Your record is what you say it is, what it says that you are, and we got to go earn these wins.
Back with me to talk Bengals is Bengals all-time leading scorer Jim Breach and super fast former Bengals cornerback Rodney Heath. Fellas, how we doing?
Doing good, Reggie. How are you?
Good. Not as good as the Bengals. So how disappointing is this loss today?
Reg, you're up 21-0. Unfortunately, they had 3 more quarters to play, so that made it difficult. And if you don't put any pressure on Philip Rivers, he will pick you apart, which he did. You have to get in his face and force him to make 4 throws, which he does on a weekly basis, but not much pressure, and they came back, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, one of the things that I saw on the defensive side was like when you're up like that and you want to continue to come after a team, and the way the offense was moving, pushing Indianapolis around, they were winning in the trenches in the beginning of the game. And on the defensive side, you're thinking that, you're going to be physical and you're going to be able to get after it. And, it's just unfortunate how this happens in the end.
Absolutely. So what does a deflating loss like that do to the locker room?
It's discouraging. I mean, we're up 21-0. They're up 21-0, and you can't believe it's slipping away. And then they have the opportunity late and the field goal hits the upright, or the third down play where they put P. Ryan in for one play. He doesn't get the first down. I mean, there's opportunities along the way, but it's demoralizing, and it's going to be tough to come back, especially with Cleveland next week.
Yeah. What you got ahead is tough. I mean, you got a schedule where this was a game that, at first, because they had the #1 defense in Indianapolis, you're thinking like, we wouldn't win. But when you got it like that and you're out like that, that is very hard to do. And, having it down to the end and having a chance to score, and there's a turnover that turns it over. I mean, a rookie mistake, staring the receivers down. I mean, that's something you got to learn from and continue moving forward.
All right, let's talk about Zach Taylor. He continues to be optimistic, even though he only has 3 wins as Bengals head coach, yet to win 1 on the road as well. So how tough is it to turn around a losing culture?
It's a weekly process, but you can't turn around a weekly culture, a winning culture, until you start to win games. And it's amazing how many close games they lose. So it's just, you got to keep shoveling that dirt. You got to keep trying. And one of these weeks, everything falls into place. Right now, it's discouraging.
But he has to. I mean, Zach is saying the right things, though. I mean, he has to continue to be optimistic. And really, as you lead, as a leader, as a coach, one thing is everybody's looking to you. So if he's going to be that guy, that's the way he's going to go down. His ship is going to sink, but he's going to continue to stay optimistic about it. And, hopefully they can turn it around soon, because that schedule is going to get tougher. Yeah,
like you said, it's a tough 3-game stretch the next 3 weeks, and we'll see what happens. But goodness gracious, that was a pretty deflating loss today. But Jim and Rodney, I appreciate you guys taking the time. Let's do it again next week.
No problem, man. You guys have a good one.
So I want to hear from you after these last 2 weeks, and with the Bengals' upcoming slate, when do you think the Bengals will win again? Tweet me at Reggie Wilson TV and make sure to use the hashtag SOAS. Tough break for the Bearcats, surging momentum this week, but not for anything on the field related. Coming up, what's next for the football team after COVID-19 postpones the game against Tulsa? Plus,
one of the stages of grief is acceptance, and we were unable to accept it.
Big Ten parents making a difference just ahead. We walk through the efforts to get back to football games next week. Welcome back. Big Ten football will return in a matter of days after a long road of uncertainty and angst. Let's take you through how we got to this point. When the college football season started, it wasn't hard to notice a big absence.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty in our country to encourage our student athletes to participate in fall sports.
On August 11th, the Big Ten postponed football games.
The cancellation was heartbreaking for him.
The him Doug Ramsey is referring to is his son, elder grad Peyton Ramsey, who transferred from Indiana to play quarterback at Northwestern this season.
That was really hard to know that other people were allowed to, and you guys weren't doing anything different, but you're not allowed to, I think was hard for a lot of the guys to accept.
We wanted communication.
Monica Johnson, mom of Ohio State freshman and Princeton grad Paris Johnson, said it became personal.
During that time, we were on an emotional roller coaster, and one of the stages of grief is acceptance, and we were unable to accept it.
Let us play! Let us play!
So a group of parents held a protest outside of the Big Ten headquarters in late August, demanding answers.
We wanted to make sure that they were given the same opportunities as a Alabama, as a Clemson, to be able to compete.
Then on September 16th, change.
And I'm just very happy to be in front of you today to announce that we will be returning to competition to afford our incredible student athletes the opportunity to do what they love.
A welcome announcement for Ohio State head coach Ryan Day.
It hasn't been easy for anybody, but I just, to be able to look these guys in the eye and let them know that they have an opportunity to play and that their fight, they have something to show for it now.
Games will start on the weekend of October 23rd, and players are fired up about it.
He said, "Mom, I have not taken one day off. I am ready to go."
So albeit a little late, the Big Ten will make its big entry into the college football conversation. While the Big Ten is on the way back, UC football is now on a 2-week bye this latest week because of COVID-19. Justin Williams from The Athletic broke the story this week, and he joins me now. Justin, thanks for taking the time.
Happy to do it.
Justin, take me through what happened.
I mean, honestly, story, the news broke, I think, right at midday on Thursday, and honestly did not have much of a heads up beyond that. It all kind of happened pretty quick. I think this was a case, we've seen a lot of games postponed. I think a lot of times you see when it's happened, maybe a bunch of positives have popped up, whether it was from one round of testing, so you get the results one morning and there's a lot of guys. I think this was a situation where that week, the couple rounds of testing that they had stacked a couple positives on top of each other. Not a ton. I don't think we're talking up in the 20, 30 numbers that we've seen at some schools. But I think as the week was going, they had a couple positives. They were doing the contact tracing, and then knowing they were going to have to put the team on a plane Friday afternoon to go out to Tulsa for the game. I just think they and the conference, both programs in the conference felt like the safest thing to do was try to contain it, try and get their arms around the situation and not risk putting potentially someone who, was positive or a couple people positive on that plane and then having to go through that 20, 30 type number of positive deal that we've seen some teams have to go through after traveling.
How tough is this for team routine, and what does this do for the momentum they've been building?
It comes at a weird time. They had a bye week before this, and sometimes you can look at a bye week as a good chance to rest and maybe get healthy and get a little extra preparation. Now they're if they're able to play next Saturday at SMU, which we can talk about, they will have been 20 days, basically 3 weeks since they would play their last game. Now you start to wonder if rust becomes a factor, and if the time off was a detriment when it gets to be that long. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly, if they're able to play at SMU. That's a number 16 team in the country that puts up over 40 points a game. You can't afford to come out flat and not be ready to go. And that could be tough to do after not playing for 3 weeks and then going on the road. So there's a lot of variables at play, obviously, and certainly the right decision was made in terms of health and safety. But if you're looking on the field, it's possible that this could have some negative adverse effects for them.
So UC is scheduled to play next on October 24th at number 17 SMU, a huge game. What do you know about the status of that one?
As of late last week, when the news broke that the Tulsa game was postponed, there was optimism that the Bearcats would still be able to go on the road, play at Dallas next Saturday, this coming Saturday now. It's I guess it doesn't matter at this point, but there was some talk that if this had been a home game against Tulsa as opposed to a road game, they still might have been able to play. I think some of the travel concerns were a big part of postponing this, and it would have given them an extra day to kind of test and see where the team was at without having to fly. Obviously, that's irrelevant. It didn't matter. But I think the hope is if they could get through the next couple rounds of testing and feel like they contained it and feel like, everything was coming up negative during those tests, that they might have a chance, probably with still somewhat of a depleted roster, but they'd have a chance to play. So that honestly depends on how the next few rounds of testing go, including into early this week. So we'll see. But there was at least a hope that one game would be all that they would have to miss because of this.
All right, fingers crossed, Justin. As always, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks, Reggie.
We're headed into week 3 of high school football playoffs in Ohio. Coming up, we put a bow on Friday night's games and tell you which matchups to look forward to in the next round. Welcome back. A sizzling night of high school football playoffs in Ohio. Joining me now to talk about it is our high school insider, Mike Dyer. Mike, thanks for hanging out with me.
Reggie, always appreciate the time and the conversation, as always.
We had some pretty compelling matchups Friday. Which one stood out to you?
There's been a lot of firsts for playoff wins. Obviously everybody's able to make the playoffs this year. We all know about the uniqueness of this season. But a program like, for example, Ross in Division III, first program playoff win for them. And got to give a lot of credit to the Rams and Coach Kenyon Cummins, what he's doing there. And certainly, these are times that you want to give credit to these programs that have put in all this work. You might say, oh, hey, everybody makes the playoffs. Yeah, but the uniqueness of this season and overcoming the adversity that each one of these teams has done. And we have seen, some games obviously getting canceled because of COVID-19. So that's one example of, what I really kind of am struck by is seeing some of these program milestones. But certainly Elder, Princeton, Coleraine, Mason, those were some good games that we saw across the board. And then, in Division II, Region 8, it seems like we're still loaded with talent there. When you talk about Winton Woods, LaSalle, Turpin plays Kings next week, and, just all across the board, some really good teams that are still remaining.
That leads me to my next question. We got Lakota West Coleraine, Elder St. X next week. What games are you looking forward to?
Certainly Division I, Region 4, everybody wants to know, Lakota West, the top seed, going into the postseason, but everybody wants to see that matchup of Tom Bolden and Coleraine again. Everybody knows that the Firebirds came out on top there on Cheviot Road back on August 28th, which is basically a lifetime ago, even though it's been a shortened season, but that was only a 10-0 score. So we want to see what the defensive battle might be between Sean Cutright and Tom Bolden on Friday night. And then obviously Elder St. X meeting for the second time this season. That was one of those situations where X defeated Elder, a high-scoring affair, 38-24 back on September 11th. But when it comes to this GCL South showdown, as we all know, we saw that last year. Anything can happen, and it's going to be certainly an exciting matchup to watch.
Mike, LaSalle has had his ups and downs this season, but it seems like maybe the team is picking it up at the right time.
You really kind of hit the point right there, Reggie. Pat McLaughlin has been here. The state championship run from a year ago, there's so much experience returning from that squad, and namely senior quarterback Zach Branham, junior running back Jabron Payne, everybody knows about him, and certainly you have pieces and parts from that state championship run that know what to do during this time of the postseason, and very experienced offensive line. Those coaches have been through all this, so Winton Woods may be the number 1 seed, and certainly when it's all said and done, they may win the regional title, but LaSalle is certainly the defending state champions, and the road has to go through them.
You mentioned Winton Woods missed the playoffs last year, but they look strong right now. What do you see from them that gives them a chance to make some noise?
Well, Reggie, you and I saw them a couple of weeks ago, obviously, and one of the points that Coach Andre Parker made was simply having a 3-year starter at quarterback in senior Michael Wingfield, and he has done wonders. I talked to him after the game. We talked to him, and nothing really phases him. And I think it all starts there. When you talk about experience of LaSalle being on that state championship stage, certainly Michael Wingfield and some of those seniors have been on a very big stage too. Now, remember, Win Woods has been an independent for many, many years before joining the Eastern Cincinnati Conference this year. And Coach Andre Parker never shied away from playing GCL South opponents, out-of-area opponents. They've been on the biggest stages possible. So when it comes to that, and they have a very talented team. I mean, you could see that from Tyreek Spikes, the electric tailback. They have some guys that obviously Andrew Bam Booker at senior linebacker there, kind of leading that defense. And so a tough physical Winton Woods team, that's what they're known for. And I think they're going to give anybody fits.
Well, we'll see what happens on what should be another compelling Friday night. Mike, as always, I appreciate your insight.
Thank you, Reggie. Appreciate it.
We'll be right back to wrap up the show. Welcome back. Well, it's been real, it's been fun, it's been real fun, but we gotta go. I'd like to thank my guests Jim Breach, Rodney Heath, Justin Williams, and Mike Dyer for joining me tonight. And thank you to my village who helped me put this all together. Thank you for watching. Let's do it again next Sunday. Until then, have a good night and a very blessed week.